Guys, and please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on the screen. Those are attending in online. Guys, please check it. All of you get my voice on the screen. Those are attending in online. Please confirm to me. Battery is the pitch. Guys, please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on the screen. Right. Right. Good morning, guys. And check it what we completed there in the last session. I think so. We are discussing about IOC containers. In IOC containers, what we completed there, bean factory. Totally, the content is completed. Bean factory. Total topic is completed. Then after that, we started with the application context. Application context also be here we started. What exactly the application context? What you are having about this application context? Here the answer is what? It is a child container of bean factory. Almost all what I am telling there, it is a sub interface of bean factory interface. What is the advantage of it now? All capabilities of bean factory will come to application context. Not only that, we can define some extra functionalities also with application context as it is a child for bean factory. Next one is application context container is able to have all the capabilities of bean factory and some other advanced features like internationalization, event handling, and so on. Next one is after that, application context will be utilized in Spring AOP module, web module, transactions module, and so on. Right. Application context will be used for all the types of applications, including web applications, standalone applications, database related applications, distributed applications for all. Next one is application context is able to create all bean objects at the time of creating container. Application context object is able to create all bean objects. Whatever the bean configurations we specified there, that everything will be created. Every bean object will be created by application context at the time of creating container. To represent application context container, Spring Framework has provided a predefined interface in the form of application context and the following implementation classes. See, overall, 3 implementation classes are provided. First one is class path XML application context, file system XML application context, web XML application context. So what is the purpose of each and every one also we are going to do, we are going to see. So by that we are able to get some clarity. Now here, I want to show some proofs with this application context. Then I want to go for some internal flow of execution also for application context. By that, we are able to have some clarity. Right, so now let me prepare a small application for this application context here. Already we have seen examples there on this, but let me prepare one more example to demonstrate application context and to understand the flow of execution about this application context. Now let me check one simple program for it. Right, so now we can use like what there, anything, any ID we can use there, but I want to use like what there, IntelliJ idea I want to use for this. We can utilize anything. Even Eclipse also we can use there, that we know how to prepare user defined library in both Eclipse and as well as in IntelliJ idea that we want to prepare now. Now tell me guys, you only now tell me. Now here file new project. File new project. The new project data here it is asking there. Now that project name is like what there, I want to say app08. app08. Now here language is Java, build system is IntelliJ, then Java, JDK is the 17th version, then everything is okay, not required to do any other one here. Now click on create. So new window I want to take, or maybe this window in the sense existing project will be gone, then this new project will come here. Click on this window. Now total a fresh new window is created. Right. Now here what I am telling now after this is Java project only. But if you want to make it is a Spring project, then I need to add Spring library. Previously we prepared Spring global library. So we have to create that. How we are able to create this? Now tell me, right click on the project. Then what next one here? Open module settings, open module settings. Then when we click on this open module settings, already we prepared. What we prepared here now? Then dependencies and click on plus button. There we have to select a library. In that library, global library Spring 5 lib is available. Already we created that. Select it, add selected. Then after that, what next one here? Apply OK button. Now in the external libraries, Spring 5 lib is existed. Previously 17, JDK 17 is available. Now it is what there, Spring 5 lib it is existed. So that is created. Now it is acting as like what there, a Spring project. Right. Observe carefully what I am trying to say now. Now here, let me prepare new package. What is that package here? Beans package here I want to prepare. com dot Durgasoft dot app08 dot beans. Inside this, just I want to create new, just simply I want to prepare a class. Java class here I want to create. What is this Java class here we want to create there? Observe carefully. Now simply I want to create, say for example, customer I want to create. Customer class here I want to create. Simple, customer class here I want to create. Now inside this customer, some properties and some details here I want to enter. What properties here I want to take there? Private and string customer ID. Next one is private string customer name. Then private string customer address. Only three properties here I want to take. Okay, fine. Then I need to prepare setters and getters for all the properties. How we are able to prepare setters and getters for all the properties here? Right click here, generate. Option is what? Generate. Or the shortcut is what? Alt insert. Alt insert. Just if we type Alt insert, insert is existed here. There we are able to get it directly. Alt insert if we type no. Then what I have to get then? Getter and a setter. Getter and setters that I want to get. Now right click on, that means click on enter button here. Now here we have to select all of them. Then click on OK. Then for each and every variable, getter and setter method is created. Now what I want to prepare there, just I want to display all the customers details no. So here we have to go for like what there, public void get customer details. Get customer details. Inside this customer details, then what I'm going to provide there, just I'm going to display all the customers details. How I'm going to display the customer details now? Out. Now inside this, just I want to write like what there, customer details that I want to prepare. Next one is out. On line space here I want to provide one line break. Then after that, what I want to display there, out customer ID. Customer ID. Here I want to display like what there, ID value of this customer. So plus now here we need to call like what there, get a CID method here we can call. Either directly we can use variable or we can use like what there, getter method directly. Next one is after that, out. Then here what we have to provide there, customer name. Customer name, that what we provided here, then plus get a customer name. Next one after that, out of, then what we have to provide there, customer address. Customer address. Now here what we have to do there, plus get a customer address. The value here we provided. That's okay. Then overall here we completed our bean component. Next one is what we have to do there. After completion of this bean component, what next one here we have to do there? We need to prepare configuration file. Now here I need to go for right click on SRC, new package. What should be the package here we have to take now? That would be com dot Durgasoft dot app08 dot. Just I want to take like what their config. Config is the name that we have to use. Now here we need to prepare Spring configuration file. Now here we have to take a file. Then file name is like what there Spring config dot xml. Spring config dot xml. Now inside this what we require there, here we required like XSD we have to provide for the sake of parsing our XML file now. From where we are able to get this XSD now, tell me. There we have to go for the location where we unzip the zip file what we downloaded from Spring Framework. E drive, softwares, frameworks, Spring. Now inside this, then what we have to do there Spring Framework where docs we have to go there reference HTML. Now inside this core. Then here we are getting like this total content here. Now where we can scroll down, there we can see XSD. Directly here we are able to get like what is the XSD for beans. Right from prologue. That here total here we have to copy. XML version encoding from that point onwards and everything here we have to copy. There we have to paste it. There we have to paste this. Right. Now here what I am telling there beans. I closed this tag. Now observe carefully. Now inside this, I need to provide bean configuration. What should be the bean configuration here? We have to provide the bean tag here. We have to take. Then inside this, now I need to provide ID. ID is equal to custom bean. That means customer bean. Customer bean. Then after this customer bean, then what we have to take there? Class is equal to fully qualified name of the customer. Here we have to take. Now here we have to specify com dot Durgasoft dot app08 dot. Next one is like what there beans dot. Here we have to provide customer. Fully qualified name. Even I did not type it in a single letter here. By default, the total thing here we are getting. That's okay, fine. Then after that, inside this, some properties are existed here. We have to take properties now. What properties are existed here? We need to understand these properties here now. First one is customer ID. Here I need to take like value. Value is equal to C-111, for example. Next one is another thing is like what their property. Name is equal to customer name. Then what next one can know value. Value is something else like what there Durga that we want to provide. Next one. Property name is equal to customer address. Value is equal to just simply I want to say like what there Hyderabad. Now here we provided this. Now this is like what I'm telling here. Bean tag, inside this bean tag, all the customer details here we provided. Even values also here we provided there. Right, sir. Then observe carefully. Then after completion of this XML file, Spring config.xml there, then we have to prepare like what there directly we have to prepare tester class. Right click on src new a package. Then inside this what I am telling there com dot Durgasoft dot app08 dot tester. Then inside this package now I have to take a tester class. New and a class here I have to take that class name should be like what their tester. Now inside this tester class here what we have to do there main method is required. Inside this main method what we have to prepare there. First of all, as you know, application context object here we have to prepare. So here we have to provide like what their application context context is equal to then what next one you know new right class path XML application context what we have seen. Then here that we have to prepare there. Now inside this what we have to provide there, we need to provide the name and location of the configuration file. What is the name and location of the configuration file now? com slash Durgasoft slash then what next one app08 slash next one is config slash spring config dot xml. If any mistake is available, that XML file is not going to be parsed. If it is not parsed, application context object will not be created. That's okay, fine. Anyway, now observe carefully. Then what next one here? After getting this application context, directly we have to get bean object. Why? Because at the time of creating application context only, all bean objects are going to be created here now. Now let us get that bean object. Now what is that bean object actually? Customer cust is equal to or maybe customer is equal to context dot get bean method. Now here we have to pass string value as a parameter. Then where what we have to pass there id attribute value from the Spring configuration file. What is that id attribute value? No, this value here we have to pass. Right now, let me copy this and let me paste this here. There we are able to get customer object here. Now here still we are getting error. Why? Because get bean method will return the customer object in the form of object type. There what we required here, we need to typecast from object type to customer type. So here what we have to do there for typecasting purpose, you know, just here we have to go for right sir, cast to customer. Automatically typecasting is going to be performed. When the typecasting is performed here, whenever this typecasting is performed there, next one is customer object here we are getting. Then from this we can display the data. All the customer details here we are able to display just by using like what there customer dot get customer details. There is a method. If you call this, then automatically here we are able to get all the customers details. Now let's observe this clearly. What I'm telling you know. Remaining part is I have to run this example. Right click here, run a test.main. Right, sir. The first time might it may take a little bit time now. Once the first time is completed, there we are able to get the total information. Now here we can observe this clearly. Customers details, customer ID, say -111, customer name Durga, and customer address I debit. The data here we are getting. Finally, we got the data that we are getting the total data here. So this is like what I'm telling to you. Example, right, sir. Now observe carefully. Application context is a container. Okay. Then it has how many implementation classes? No. For application context, how many implementation classes are available? 3 implementation classes are existed. Am I right or not? 3 implementation classes. What are the 3 implementation classes? Right, sir. What are these 3 implementation classes now? First one is class path XML application context, and second one is what there apart from this file system XML application context. Next one is web XML application context. That web XML application context we are unable to show anything now. Why? Because it is somewhat related with the web application. That web XML application context is related with the web applications in a web module. Maybe that will be utilized, but not now. So now we can see, we are able to see functionalities. That means programs and outputs for class path XML application context and file system XML application context. Okay. Now observe carefully. In every IDE, SRC folder is available or not? In every IDE, SRC folder is existed. Okay, SRC folder is existed in every IDE. So by default, this SRC folder will be available in a class path. By default, this SRC folder will be set to the class path. Understand my point? If you prepare directly Spring configuration file under SRC, directly it will be recognized as SRC is available in a class path. But what we have done there, the configuration file we provided in a package. What was that package there? com.durgasoft.app08.config. Inside this, that means if we use directly Spring config.xml without specifying any location here, for example, if we provide only this part, without specifying any location, then IOC container bean factory will search for the Spring config, not bean factory, application context will search for Spring config.xml file directly under SRC folder. That means up to SRC folder is already set in the class path. As per that, application context will come to SRC. There it will search for Spring-config. Answer my point. For example, if we provide simply right, sir. Now simply config slash. If you provide like this, Then what it will do there? Application context will come to SRC folder, where it will come to the config folder. But under this SRC, do you have any config folder? No, not available. So, but application context will search for config folder and SRC. There it will search for spring config.xml. That means application context will search for the name and the location of the Spring configuration file through class path environment variable. Because of that reason, here we are using like what there, class path XML application. Class path XML application, its meaning is what there, it able to search for the Spring configuration file through class path environment variable. So up to SRC, it is available in class path, no? Then where is this Spring config actually? Inside this SRC, com.durgasoft.app08.config. In this location, it is available. So because of that reason, here we need to provide, then what we have to provide there, no? Directly here we can understand, before this config, here we have to specify like what there, app08, and before that app08, we have to provide like what there. Now this is like what there, Durgasoft. Then before this Durgasoft, then we have to provide like what there, com slash Durgasoft slash app08 slash config slash spring config.xml file. If we provide like this, then only our application will be executed. Otherwise, our application will not be executed. This is the meaning of like what, no? Class path XML application context. That's okay, fine. For example, my requirement is what there. Instead of using class path XML application context, I want to use file system XML application context. I want to use that. So what we have to do there now, tell me here in this scenario, application context is equal to then what we have to provide there now, application context is equal to new. Now what we have to use there, simply we have to use like what there, file system XML application context. There we have to provide config location. Now tell me, as usual, can I use com slash Durgasoft slash app08 slash config slash spring config.xml? Can I use this? Directly, can I use this? If I use this, then what will happen? Try to observe this clearly. If I use this, then what we are able to get, try to understand this. Now let me execute this. Definitely we are going to get some exception or not. Some exceptions here we are able to get. What is this exception, guys? Now check this now. Java.io.file not found exception. File not found exception. Why we are getting this exception here? I'll give information to you. Directly, application context will search for com folder, com Durgasoft app08.config in our system hard disk. Directly, it will search for the configuration file name and location in the system hard disk. In the system hard disk, do you have any folder like com directly? If I open the system hard disk there, observe carefully. This PC, if I open now, how many drives are available in my system? C drive, D drive, E drive, F drive. Apart from all these four, do you have any like a COM drive? No. Have seen any COM location here along with the C, D, E, F? No. No. So that's why that location, the path what we are given is an invalid. So what we have to do there? If we want to use that file system XML class application context there, total path of the file, total physical path of the file we have to provide. Absolute path of the file we have to provide. Absolute path in the sense that path we have to take right from C drive, right from drives onwards, right from root onwards, we have to copy and we have to use that particular name, that particular total location in our application context constructor. Right, sir. Now further purpose here, what I'm telling here. Now where is my application actually? My application is available in the D drive. Inside the D drive, frameworks. Inside the framework, Spring. Inside the Spring, IntelliJ projects. Then here app08. Inside this SRC. Inside this COM. Inside this Durgasoft. Inside this app08. Then inside this config. Then here we are getting spring config.xml. Then we have to copy this total location. Control C. Control C. I copied this total location. I went to this particular location here. Now what I'm telling there, in place of this, I want to paste whatever the address we copied there. Then what is the absolute path we copied there, that we have to provide. Now observe this clearly. D colons. Either we have to use two backward slashes or single forward slash. Both are worked out. Both are working. So here D colon slashes frameworks Spring IntelliJ projects app08 src com Durgasoft app08 config. Then here we have to use like what there, two backward slashes. Either we can use two backward slashes between two folders, or we can use single forward slash. Either single forward slash or two backward slashes we can use. Now the location, total location here we specified. Now it is referenced from D drive. It is referenced from what there, D drive. Directly application context will go to the directly the file location. File location right from the specified D drive onwards. Okay, now that we provided clearly, then after that we are trying to execute this program. If we execute this program here also we are able to get some outputs clearly. Here also we are getting some output. Customer details here we are getting. Customer details, customer ID, CIF111, customer name Durga, customer address, IDebit. The data here we are getting. Right, sir. Now this is like what there, file system XML application context. And previously what we have used there, class path XML application context. Both are shown. But web XML application context is not possible now. That will be discussed in a web module. In web module, we are going to use web XML application context. In the future, we are going to understand this total part here. Okay, fine. Now here, what I am telling to you, I want to go for some internal flow of execution for this. How it is going on internally. Previously, I shown some outline information, but now we are going to understand deeply the total information here. We are going to understand there. Let me show some flow of execution here. The total flow of execution here, I want to try to observe this clearly. So first of all, what I want to take there, here I want to take some test application. What is this test application here? I want to prepare there. Application context is equal to new. Then what we ought to specify there, class path XML application context. Okay, there we can specify directly. I'm specifying some location there, then com/Durgasoft slash something else. There we want to provide like what there, spring config.xml. That we are trying to provide. Where is it? Is it visible? Okay, right. Now this is like what I'm telling there, application context object here we created. After getting this application context object, there we have to get object directly. Customer cust is equal to typecasting. I'm not performing here. Directly I'm going to use like what there, context dot get bean of. Directly here we specify like what there, cust bean that we are providing. Then whenever we are getting this, then the next one is like what there, directly cust dot business method here we call cust dot get customer details method here we are calling. That's okay. Now this is like what I'm telling there, test application. Next one is, apart from this, here we are able to have Spring configuration file is existed. Spring configuration file is existed here. There we can understand Spring config.xml. Okay, Spring config.xml file is existed. Now inside this, what exactly the details, configuration details are provided there. We can observe this clearly. All right, sir. Custom bean mapped to customer, then fully qualified name, that what we provided. This is one configuration. Then apart from this configuration there, inside these three more properties are defined. What properties are defined here? No, customer ID. What's the value here we provided there? CIF111, for example. Next one is customer name. Customer name colon Durga. Then after that, customer address colon Hyderabad. The data we provided inside the Spring configuration file. Okay, fine. Whenever we are getting this one, then what next one here we have to do there? There we have to go for bean class. This is my bean class. What exactly this bean class here? We can observe carefully. Bean class is like what their customer. Then inside this customer bean class, what we are having there? Customer ID, customer name, then customer address, then the respective set XXX methods and get XXX methods. Right. These many things are existed inside this customer ID, customer name, customer address, and set XXX method and get XXX method. These are the various methods which are existed here. That's okay. Now get observe carefully how this flow of execution is going to be performed here. Now tell me, who will execute our test application now? Who will execute our test application there? JVM. JVM will execute our test application. When we execute our core Java program, JVM will execute our main method. So here, what we are having there, now here we are having JVM. This is JVM. Okay. Now JVM is trying to execute test application. Understand this. This much of internals we required. In the future, by moving on to the concepts, no, I may go for more and more depth in the Spring framework. There to understand the total content there, here itself we have to understand these topics. Now tell me, now this is JVM. This is JVM. When JVM encounter this application context is equal to new class path XML application context of Spring config.xml file. When JVM encounter this one, immediately what JVM will do here, immediately application context container will be activated. Application context container will be activated. This is like what I'm telling there, application context container. Okay, immediately it will activate application context container. JVM will activate this one. Okay, this is like what I'm telling there, application context. Then what this application context is able to do now, immediately what it able to do now, immediately application context container will take name and location of the Spring configuration file from application context constructor. First it will take name and location of the Spring configuration file. After identifying name and location of the Spring configuration file, name and location, then application context will search for Spring configuration file at the specified location. If it is a class path XML application context, directly application context will go to SRC folder. Up to that it is in class path, from where it will search for the name and location of the Spring configuration file. For example, if it is then what is this now, file system XML application context now, directly it will take that location, directly it will search for that location from root of the computer, root of the hard disk. So anyway, finally it will search for the application, that means Spring config.xml file. When application context container identify this as Spring config.xml, immediately what this application context container will do there, immediately it will perform loading of that Spring configuration file. This is what they're loading the total XML file into the memory. XML loading. After loading this XML file, then immediately what next one here, we have to parse that XML file. Application context will parse that XML file. Now here we can understand like what they're parsing. What is the meaning of parsing? No, what is the meaning of this XML parsing? You know, it would be like what there, checking all the XML tags are provided properly or not. All the attributes are provided properly or not. If any mistake is available in the XML file, no, immediately an exception will be raised for us. Immediately an exception will be raised here. But here, okay, fine. We can understand it now. Every XML tag is proper in our XML file here, so we don't have any parsing errors. Parse errors are not identified. Then after that, after parsing these, application context will read all the beans configurations from the parsing phase. Then it able to read all the configurations now. Then what should be the next phase? You know, reading. The next phase should be like what there, reading all the beans configuration from XML file. Now this is like what they're reading. After reading, then it will identify the bean classes. Okay, meanwhile, it might be created application context map. Internal application context will maintain the map to store all the key value pairs. Key value pairs in the sense where key should be ID attribute values and value should be a bean object. Already application context container is created. Then after that, after reading all the bean components, bean configurations from the XML file, then immediately application context will search for the respective beans.class files. For example, if 10 beans are available, 10 bean classes are configured in a Spring configuration file. Now, application context will search for 10 bean classes. Different bean classes we configured there. Then application context will search for all the 10 bean classes. Now, in this example, we have taken only one bean class here. Then immediately, when application context is identifying the respective bean class there, bean.class file, then immediately what it able to perform there, first it able to perform class loading. Directly it able to perform like what there, class loading. So we can say this phase is called as like what there, loading, bean loading or simply loading phase. Whenever it is loaded there, then immediately it will perform instantiation. Immediately it will perform like what there, instantiation. Instantiation is nothing but like what there, object is created, empty object is created. While instantiation of the bean constructor will be executed. Instantiation will be created. Instantiation. Okay. Instantiation. Right, sir. Whenever instantiation is completed there, immediately application context will recognize property tags inside the bean. Then it will provide initialization for this bean object in the memory. Then automatically it will provide like what their initialization as per the property tags now. By executing setter methods, initialization will be performed. Customer ID colon C-111. Then what next one here? Customer name. Then after that, here we have to provide customer name colon Durga. Then after that, customer address C-ADDR colon Hyderabad. Now this part is nothing but what they know, initialization, maintaining this part, storing this data. This part is nothing but what their initialization. So what application context is performing over the bean class there. When bean class dot class file is identified by application context, then immediately it will load bean class bytecode to the memory. After loading that, bean class instantiation. While instantiation constructor will be executed. Then after that, initializing the bean as per the property tags inside of our Spring configuration file. Then initialization of the bean is also be completed. Right, sir. Then overall 3 steps are completed. After completion of these 3 steps now, then what application context will do here? Application context will keep this bean object into a map which is maintained by application context. Now this is a customer object. Now this customer object is provided along with a key. That key is what they know, Then key is what there? The key should be, you can observe carefully, what is that key actually? ID attribute value in the Spring configuration for the respective bin. That is custom bin. Then here we are getting it. Understand my point here? Then inside this, that customer object is stored. When a customer object is stored here, then immediately application context will take this customer bin. Then application context will send that bin object reference to custom variable. Application context will send that bean object to custom. That means sorry. Right, sir. Here what it able to do? No, just it able to store that bean object inside the application context. It will not do any other one here. Now here we can understand customer ID is what there, CFN111, and customer name is equal to Durga. Then after customer address is equal to IDEPET. The data is stored, that is mapped with custom bin. That's it. This is going on, this total scenario is going on when we execute this application context is equal to new class path application context spring config.xml. So here what is the point here we have to recognize from this total process here? No, from this total, the point here what we have to understand there, whenever application context object is creating, when application context object is creating, application context will recognize the configuration file. It will perform configuration file loading, configuration file parsing, and reading the data from this configuration file. Then after that, for all the bin configurations, application context will create objects. For example, in this example, I have taken only one bin. Maybe in our application, you may have number of bins, not like single bin, and thousands of bins might be created, hundreds of bins might be created. All these bins objects are created. Then configuration details will be taken. After taking the configuration details, application context will search for all the bin.class files. When any bin.class file is identified, immediately it will perform customer, that means bin loading, bin initialization, and bin initialization. Loading in the sense loading that class bytecode to the memory. Initialization in the sense like what they're creating object for that empty object only. Then after separately we provided like what their initialization. All the initializations are completed. After completion of these initializations, then what next one here? This customer object will be stored inside the application context container along with the key. What is the key here? No, ID attribute value for the respective bin, which was specified in the Spring configuration file. Now the key value pair is existed inside like what their application context. So this everything is going on in the case of like what there, whenever application context is created. But in the case of bean factory, what happened there? No. At what time bean objects are created in the case of bean factory? Not at the time of creating bean factory object. After creating bean factory, when we request for the bean, then only bean object will be created. If you are not requesting any bean, no bean will be created here. No. Understand this point clear? Right, sir. Now here, what I'm telling here, after completion of this particular one, now this is total application context, what it is doing internally. After completion of this, then what next one here? Now, the total JVM work is completed there. Now JVM will come to like which in a section here? No, customer cust is equal to context dot get bin of cust bin. Then immediately, then what we are doing there? Simply, we are submitting request to the application context. We are submitting request to the application context. I want to get a pin on the basis of like what their custom pin. Then immediately what application context will do there? Application context will search for the respective pin on the basis of the provided ID value. So here custom pin is available. When a custom pin is available, then automatically it able to get like what they know directly the respective customer object it will provide. Then that customer object will be given back to the respective custom variable. Directly that bin object will be given to custom variable. Observe carefully. Now bin object is available to custom variable. Okay, fine. Now this is the way to get like what their bin object. Then after completion of this, when JVM encounter this custom dot get a customer details, no, automatically all the customer details will be displayed. What exactly this customer details here we are able to display there. Now try to understand this customer details here. Directly we can specify clearly like this. how customer details are going to be provided here. Customer ID C-111 and customer name Durga. Then what next one here? Customer address colon ID. This data will be displayed as is because of this particular one. This is the total internal story here we can understand now. Now here, what are the steps here we are going to provide there? What exactly the steps now? If you observe the steps, then it will be very simple for us. First of all, what we have to understand there, when JVM executing this application context is equal to new class path XML application context. When JVM executing this, automatically what it is creating there now, it is creating application context object, application context. Creating application context is nothing but creating a map internally. Creating what there? A map object for storing all the pins. It is created. And then after that, after getting this application context, then what it will do there? It will take, next step is what there? It will take name and location of the Spring configuration file. Then it will search for that Spring configuration file. Whenever it is identifying, then what next one, we can observe this clearly. Then it able to perform loading of that XML file. Next one is like what there? Parsing of that XML file. Next one is like what there? Reading XML file configuration data. Then whenever this data is identified here, it will take all the beans configurations. Next one is application context will search for the respective bean component. As bean component is identified, then it able to perform bean component loading. Then after that, bean component initialization. Then after that, bean component initialization. Initialization is going to be performed by executing certain methods directly. Then after that, after completion of this, after initializing this bean object, next one is like what there? That bean object will be stored inside like what there? Application context along with the ID attribute value. That is the key. Then after that, after completion of this, then this is going to be happen whenever we created application context. Then after that, then what next one here? When JVM executes this particular intersection here, when JVM executes this particular intersection, like what there? Cust is equal to context dot get bean. Customer cust is equal to context dot get bean of method. Then immediately it will submit a request to get that particular bean object. Now here, what next one then application context will search for the respective bean on the base of its ID. Then when bean object is identified, that will be taken by application context. The same bean object will be assigned to the respective cust variable there. Whenever we are getting the cust variable, then directly JVM will execute like what there? Cust dot get customer details. Automatically all the customer details are going to be stored, are going to be displayed. Now these are like what there? Finally the displaying the data. Finally displaying the data that we have to understand. This is overall information about like what there? Application context. Right, now let me prepare this one. Application context internal flow. Right, sir. All of you understand these points here? Clear? Right. Then after getting clarity of this, all these points, no, I want to show all these stages in our program. As is that proofs here I need to show in our program there. Now let me check these proofs now. First of all, now here what I have to show there. When okay, now I want to comment this. Just I want to go for class path application context, or maybe directly we can use this one also, file system, whatever it may be. All right, sir. Now here what I will do there. Just I want to write some information. Like what is that information here? No, application context container is created. No resource object. Okay, is created. Okay, that is one point here. Next one is after that I want to stop flow of execution. System.io dot in dot not io system.in dot read method that we have to use. Here we are going to get some exception here, so here we have to throw out that exception. Okay, that we are getting. This is one point. So just application context object is created. At the time of creating application context object, bean objects must be created and bean objects must be initialized. Am I right or not? Bean objects must be initialized. That point also here we have to understand clearly. Right, sir. That's okay, fine. Next one is what next one here after that. Now here what I want to do there, system.out.println of Right, sir. Getting customer bean object through get bean method. Okay, then after that, after getting this, then what I am telling there, here what I will do there, system dot in dot read method. Then remaining part is what there, we are going to display the customer details. Only these three things here I want to show there. Now let us understand this clearly. Not only this, now insert this customer dot Java. Insert this customer dot Java, then what I want to there, I want to provide a static block. What is the meaning of the static block now? What we are going to understand this clearly through the static block here. Now we can understand customer bean class loading. Understand my point? Static block will be executed at the time of loading the respective class bytecode. Next one is after that public customer constructor here we want to take. Public customer constructor. Inside this, just I want to specify like what there, system.out println of customer initialization, customer bean initialization. Okay, customer bean initialization. That what we prepared. Now next one is when we are able to say bean initialization is performed here. When we are able to say bean initialization is performed here, no, then here further purpose we need to do something in like what there setter methods. By executing setter methods only initialization is going to be performed here. So here what I will do there, s out of CID property initialized. Now here CID property is initialized. Similarly, here what I am telling there, now here I want to provide CNAME property initialized. CNAME property initialized. Next one is like what there, CADDR property is initialized. CADDR property initialized. So all the initializations can be performed. Am I right or not? That's okay. Then everything I provided, every log I specified here, easily we can understand the flow of execution if I execute this program. Right, sir? Now here inside this Spring configuration where we don't have any problem. Tester.java also we don't have any problem. Now let us see step by step clearly. First of all, let me execute this. If I execute this, then what it is going to be performed here? Then try to understand it. Guys, observe this clearly. First, immediately at the time of creating application context container created, what happened here? No, observe carefully. First one is what? Customer bean class loading, customer bean initialization, CID property initialized, CNAME property initialized, CADDR property initialized. That bean object is created and bean object is bean class is loaded, bean object is created. After creating that bean object, then what next one again? No, bean initialized. The total bean initialized is completed. Then after that, bean object will be stored in application context map, application context container. That all the things are completed here just within a single action when we create application context. But what we have seen in the case of bean factory, in the case of bean factory, what we observed there now, right? Then not at the time of creating bean factory, just a bean factory object will be created, just empty object will be created. But when the beans are going to be created now, when we request for the bean, then only beans are created. But here what happened there now, whenever application context is created, bean classes are loaded, bean objects are created, bean initializations are performed. Not only that, bean object is bounded with the application context map along with the logical name. Now let me click on enter button here. If we click on enter button here, then what it able to perform there? It able to provide some data. What data it able to perform there? Bean object is provided. No, then there's a problem with ID only. Don't worry for this. Let me execute one more time. Right, sir. All the things here we are getting there. Now let me click on enter button. If I click on enter button here, what we are getting there? Getting customer bean through get bean method. So customer bean object here we are getting there after displaying all these things. Then if I click on one more time enter button there, then what we are able to get? All the customer details here we are getting. That's it now. This is the mainly the difference between like what now? the clear-cut information about like what their application context and its internal flow. Okay, guys. Now required information here I provided. What is bean factory and what is application context? See, now here we are having one very important interview question for us. It's very important interview question. Then everybody must understand this important interview question here. What is this question actually? What are the differences between bean factory and application context? Bean factory container and application context container. This is the very famous interview question. Even though if we keep 3 to 4 years of experience in our resume, there we are able to get this question there. Up to now, then one main important interview question is this. Then in general, enterprise application architecture and all the layers of the enterprise applications, they're normal questions only. In general, every interview will ask commonly some questions now. But especially with respect to the Spring framework, if they want to ask the very first question of Spring framework is like what there, this is the first question now. Then where we have to give the perfect answers clearly. Right, sir. Now one by one answers we are going to understand. We have to answer for these questions here. First answer. What is the first answer, guys? Now tell me. The very first one is like what there? Bean factory is an outdated container. Bean factory is an outdated container. But what about this application context actually? Application context is not an outdated container. It will be used at present our application requirements. All right, sir. Now bean factory is an outdated container. It is not suitable. It is not suitable for the present application requirements. It is not suitable for the present application requirements. But whereas, what about this application context? No, is not an outdated container. Okay, it is very much suitable for the present application requirements. Present application requirements. This is one thing. Second one is like what there, after completion of this, what is the relation between bean factory and application context? If you observe this, bean factory is a base container for all the IOC containers. It's a base in the sense foundation for all of them. Now what about this application context actually? We can observe this clearly. Application context is derived from bean factory. That is, what is the meaning of derived from bean factory? Then it is a child. Derived from bean factory means that derived in the sense we can understand this clearly. It's a subinterface of bean factory. Subinterface of bean factory or child for bean factory. It's like what is child for bean factory. Right, sir. Application context is derived from bean factory. Okay, that is application context is a child to bean factory. Child to bean factory. That's it. Here I can specify. I can remove this child here. Not required. So this is another point here we can understand now. The second difference. After understanding the second difference, now the third point is like what I'm telling there. All right, sir. Now the third point is when it is providing initialization and what it is depending. Bean factory is depending on resource object, but application context is not depending on resource object. Please recognize this point here now. Bean factory is depending on resource object to manage all Spring configuration details. But what about this application context here? It is not depending on resource object to manage application context. It able to manage that bean configuration file in its own way. Right, sir. Application context is not depending on any resource object to manage Spring configuration details. All Spring configuration details. This is one point. Next one, fourth one, after completion of this particular one here. Fourth point, observe carefully. Application context is okay, fine. Next one is what it is supporting, what bean factory is supporting, and what application context is supporting. Bean factory is providing the basic fundamental services, like creating bean objects and maintaining bean objects. That's it. It is providing the services like what there, creating bean objects and maintaining bean objects. That's it. It is not responsible for advanced features. But whereas what application context is doing there, now try to understand this clearly. Whereas application context is providing all the basic fundamental features, fundamental services like creating bean objects, creating and maintaining bean objects, and some other advanced features like what there, I18N internationalization. I18N in the sense like what, internationalization. And next one is like what there, event handling, event propagation, and so on. This kind of scenarios are not possible. So this kind of scenarios are possible with what their application context, but bean factory is not responsible for all these advanced features now. This is another point here we can understand. And the next one is after that, in which modules, for which modules we can utilize this bean factory, for which modules we are utilizing this application context. If you observe this clearly, bean factory is not suitable for AOP, aspect oriented, and AOP and web module, AOP, comma. Next one is like what are the transactions and web module applications. It is not suitable. Bean factory is not suitable for AOP, transactions, and web module. There, they can observe this clearly. But whereas application context is very much suitable for AOP, comma, transactions, comma, and next one is like what there, web module applications. For all these applications, it is very much suitable application context. This is one point. And the sixth point is bean factory is mainly for standalone applications. You know already by using Spring Framework we can prepare standalone applications also. Up to now we prepared standalone applications only, not any other application here. So bean factory is mainly for standalone applications, whereas application context will be used for all the types of applications. For all the types of applications like what they know, standalone applications, comma, web applications, comma, distributed applications, and comma, database related applications, and so on. Anything. For all the types of applications here we are able to use like what their application context. But bean factor is mainly for what applications? No, standalone applications. But application context will be used for all the types of applications like standalone applications, web applications, distributed applications, and database related applications. Clearly, we can utilize this. Next one is after completion of this. Guys, understand one more point here I'm telling there. 1 minute. All right, sir. One more point. In a Spring framework, when bean objects are created, we can define scopes to the bean objects. Scopes. We are able to prepare scopes. So in which way we are able to provide scopes to the variables in Java? Private scope, public scope, default scope, protected scope. What is the meaning of private scope? No, within the class. What is the meaning of default scope? No, within the package. And what is the meaning of protected scope? No, within the package and child classes in other packages. What is the meaning of public? No, throughout our system, throughout our application. So they are the scopes for the data. Similarly, when we create a bean object, when we create a bean object in Spring framework, there we are able to define some scopes. That bean object has to be generated for every call of get bean. A separate bean object has to be generated, or maybe for every call of get bean, only one bean object has to be generated. Like this, some scopes we are able to define for the bean objects in Spring framework. Like this, how many scopes are available in a Spring framework for the bean objects? No, nearly 4 or 5 scopes are available. Like singleton scope, prototype scope. Next one is like what, the request scope. Next one is a context scope. Maybe what next one is session scope, and so on. So many scopes are available here. WebSocket scope, might be some other different scopes are available here. So here the point is what, even if we are having these many scopes, no, again I will discuss about the scopes in beans concepts here. Next topic is a beans topic there. Next, then where we are able to discuss about the scopes now. Okay, scopes we are able to define there next in the beans concepts here, but time being we have to understand bean factory is able to provide, is able to support the scopes like what there, singleton scope and prototype scope. But whereas application context is supporting singleton scope and prototype scope, and what next one get request scope, session scope, and so on and so on. So many scopes it able to support. So for the bean objects we are able to define scopes, no, but bean factory is supporting only 2 types of scopes, singleton and prototype. But whereas application context is able to support so many different types of scopes. Now let us see that point also clearly. All right, sir. Now bean factory is able to allow singleton and prototype scopes to the beans. But whereas application context is able to allow all the types of scopes to the beans, like all the types of scopes to the beans, like singleton scope. Next one is like what, the prototype, singleton, prototype. Then after that, singleton, prototype. Then after that, you can understand request. Next one is a session, and so on and so on. Okay, like this. These many scopes are existed which are supported here. Next one is apart from these, then scopes related points. That's okay, fine. Right, sir. Any other point is missing here? Anything is missing here about this one? Application context, scopes are okay. Application types are okay. The next one is modules of the Spring framework is okay. Then how they are creating. Yes, we forgot that fundamental point actually. What is that fundamental point here? At what time this bean factory is creating objects? At what time application context is creating objects? If you observe this point clearly, bean factory is creating bean objects when we access get bean method. Get bean method, not at the time of creating bean factory object. That is then what I'm telling there, lazy initialization or initialization, lazy initialization. Get my point or not? It means that lazy initialization or lazy initialization. At what time that bean objects are coming there, no, on demand, when we request, then only that bean objects are created by bean factory, not at the time of creating bean factory container, not at the time of creating bean factory container. So that is what their lazy initialization and lazy initialization. They are the words here we can understand clearly. Next one is, what about this application context here? Application context is creating all bean objects at the time of creating application context container. Application context container. That is what is the meaning of it? No, that is what's the meaning of it? No, eager instantiation or eager loading, eager initialization, eager initialization or eager initialization. Close the door. Eager initialization and eager initialization. They are the two things here we are getting clearly. All of you get my point or not? All right, so now this is the eighth one here. This is the main functionality that we can understand. So interviewer may ask a question to you directly. Now tell me, in which case lazy loading, eager loading is going on? In which cases these two things are going on? Where answer should be like what there? Bean factory is following lazy loading, and application context is following like what there? Eager loading. Well, that means we can understand like what there? Lazy initialization, or lazy loading the beans, loading beans into the container, lazy loading. And then what next one? This is like what they know, eager initialization, or we may call it as like what there, eager loading. So the words we can remember, lazy for bean factory and eager is for like what they know, application context. This is one thing. Then apart from this, any other data here? Anything is missed here? Apart from this, anything is missed here? Let me check here. All the points are covered or not? Main points, they are the basic main concepts of bean factory and application context. Then scopes, okay, we provided here. It's an outdated, not outdated, and bean factory is a container for IOC base container. It's okay. Bean factory is depending on resource objects, not depending on resource object. Bean factory is providing all the providing the basic fundamental services like creating bean objects and maintaining bean objects. That's okay. Bean factory is suitable for AOP application context. Okay, fine. Bean factory is mainly for standalone applications. Bean factory is able to do singleton and prototype scopes. That's okay. Bean factory is creating bean objects when we access get bean method. Okay, fine. So max, these are the various differences here we provided here. So this is exactly the meaning of like what no IOC container, not more than that. So this is a total topic of like what there IOC container. That's okay, guys. The next topic would be like what there beans in a Spring framework. That will be the next topic. But before that, so anyway, then almost all 2 units we completed here. One is total introduction part, and that is 1 unit. Second unit is steps to prepare first application, and third unit is what there IOC containers. These 3 units are completed. Then what do you understand about these 3 units now? Are able to get everything, every information about these concepts? Are you understanding? Can I ask questions there? Can I conduct some interviews for you? Huh? Will you attend for that interview? Up to this, whatever the concepts I completed, I want to take some mock interviews for you. Are you ready for it? Written test. Can I conduct written test? See, depends on you. Then if you're interested, then I can conduct the written test. Written tests are not required. Written tests, if I provide there, then it will be good thing, good idea. Then you can see your knowledge also there. Huh? Check it, guys. Very less members are available. Then all of you are okay, then I will go forward. Otherwise, then I'll teach the content continuously. Per week, 1 day I want to assign for mock interviews. I will take that mock interviews. At least you are going to see what questions you are able to get. Better than if it is possible, then I'll prepare some question papers also in a Spring framework. Then I'll conduct that written tests also. Maybe nowadays companies are conducting written tests on Spring framework also. Multiple options questions only, not a descriptive questions. I'll conduct the written test and mock interviews also. Both I will conduct. Okay. Then up to this topic in the sense introduction part, steps to prepare first application, IOC containers. Up to these three topics, I'll conduct one written test. When we are going to see the written test there? Anyway, on this Wednesday might be festival is going on, right? Actually, I need to give holiday on that particular day, but instead of taking class, I want to conduct the test Wednesday up to this topic. Next, beans in a Spring framework, the topic is a separate topic. When I complete the topic, there I will conduct. So on Wednesday, you will have a written test. Without failure, try to attend for it. Then up to this introduction part, some questions, multiple options questions I will provide. Just we have to check that and we have to give that answer sheets, no? Or people will evaluate it and they will give that marks also to you clearly. You have to check. Okay. Right, sir. You have to check for that. Then by that, we are able to see what we are and where we are in our content curve overall. Okay, that I will do that. That's okay, guys. Then today I want to stop this and tomorrow I'll start this beans topic in Spring framework. Meanwhile, prepare for it on this Wednesday. Wednesday is exam I will conduct. First exam I will conduct it. After that, I'll go for mock test. I'll give schedule for it anyway. Okay, without failure, try to attend for it. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll see the remaining part. Thanks a lot. Guys, those who are in online, for you also, written test will be conducted there. Without failure, try to attend for it. And max, tomorrow onwards, this link is going to be changed, guys. Today is the last date. Then tomorrow onwards, link is going to be changed. Private link will come there. Those who are not yet registered for our courses, there now try to plan for it and contact with Bhavani, and she will help you regarding these registrations and all. Even videos also we are able to get. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.